Tuesday morning, it's McCollum on Business. I'm Stephen McCollum, and for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to get you updated on what's happening around the business world. Of course, we get into the market watch, stocks we're paying attention to, plus all your national and local stories that you need to know as well around Arizona. So, folks, yesterday was a great day on the market. We'll have to see, now officially there's been a memorandum signing. The official signing isn't until Friday for the Iran conflict out there. Let's see what the market's doing. Let's get into it with the Market Watch. And I'm looking at this for the first time as well with you here this morning. I wanted to be surprised. The Dow Jones is up to 259 points right now to 51,956 for the Dow Jones as we're looking at it. S&P 500 is basically even, 1.30 now, 75.54 for the S&P 500. NASDAQ also up today. NASDAQ's up 14 points right now, 30,573 for the tech-heavy index. And the small cap index up here, 24 points for the Russell 2K and the small cap index. Bitcoin, well, technically down today a little bit, but it is staying in that 66,000 range where it was yesterday as well. 66,082 for Bitcoin here this morning. Now, fourth day in a row for the Dow to basically go up here, improve, fourth day in a row. Now, we're seeing these big improvements here around the market. Obviously, lots of good news out there. There's a lot of the uncertainty is disappearing in this market. With anticipation, obviously Fed's meeting this week, but the anticipation on that is kind of gone as well. Everybody knows what to expect, but future things are getting rosier out there, especially with the oil prices dropping. We'll talk about them here in a minute, as well as the Iran situation ending, the Fed situation expecting the inflation rates to kind of start headed back down again. So a lot of optimism around the market. Stocks we're paying attention to this morning, where we're going to look at, of course, second day on the market for the NASDAQ, SpaceX out there. Yes, folks, up another 12.02% here this morning as well. Massive gains since it became onto the market here on Friday as well. They, initial public offering was $135 per share. It's already up to the $215 per share, as you see on your screen now as well. So the 57% roughly, it's higher than 57% now. At $212, it was 57% above the IPO price as Elon Musk's space company continues to go up here on the market here in its second full trading day on the NASDAQ as well. Then there's a chemical manufacturer company called Huntsman out there. Well, they're down today, 8.12%. They agreed to merge with its rival, a company called Olin. It's an all-stock deal between these two companies. After the merger, the new company will be named Olin Huntsman, taking both of their names, kind of like a wedding. The deal is expected to close in the first half of 2027. Well, Olin shares, I don't have the graph for you, but Olin shares also down about 1% here today as these chemical manufacturers joining forces here, both, stock market-wise, taking it negative as we look at that. And then we have a story on this coming up for you for more details, but we're going to look at Yum brand stocks here. They finally have unloaded that Pizza Hut brand, folks. They said Yum Brands is up 2.06% here today. They said that they're selling its Pizza Hut business to a private equity firm called Long Range Capital. And then Yum China is getting another portion of it there over in China. $2.7 billion is the total purchase price for them to unload Pizza Hut to these two entities. And Yum Brands is up 1.85% based off of that news today as well. Later on, when we come back and look at stocks, we're going to look at Dave & Buster's and Robinhood, the financial company as well. See what they're doing on the market today as we have a story on them, and then we'll look at their stock here after we talk about their story coming up here in just a couple minutes. But obviously, some national things, international things, always affecting oil prices. Well, as of yesterday, oil prices did officially fall on Monday to the lowest level since early March. All part of that preliminary agreement, the memorandum of understanding signed between the U.S. and Iran to end that war. That obviously is a big contributor to the expensive fuel that we have throughout all of the markets across the world. West Texas Intermediate, those crude oil prices, they were down over 5% yesterday as well. They went basically right above $80 a barrel, as I was telling you yesterday during the show. But prices for the U.S. oil benchmark, the West Texas Intermediate, well, it's well above the pre-war levels. Back then, it was trading between $60 and $70 a barrel in that month, which would be February, leading up to the beginning of the war there. So it's going down, but still about $10 per barrel higher as of this time. Prices for Brent crude, that's the global benchmark, they were down over 3.6% on Monday. Also, they went actually below $80 a barrel yesterday for the first time since early March for the global side. So we're still high, but way down. We're not looking at 90, 95, $100 a barrel as of now. Now, today I can tell you oil prices also down today. So we're seeing that more and more as it's trending back down to those normal levels, which hopefully will give not just at the pump when you're filling up your car, hopefully that gives us a little bit of leeway as well when it comes to things we buy out there as that all gets transported by trucks, etc., out there. Next up, well, kind of staying with those national themes that we have, well, international themes. And the G7 I think it gets underway here in the next day or so. But President Trump flew over to France yesterday, where it's happening, and he did meet with the French president. But before he went, he said France must drop its tax on the American technology, or it will face a 100% tariff on its wine. Yes, President Trump warned this before he went over there. I know the two presidents actually met yesterday as well. But President Trump said the U.S. will have no choice, was his words, to apply the tariffs. The French president does not end its 3% levy on large digital service companies. Now, obviously, tariff warnings are part of this with President Trump. The G7 summit, well, this warning raises the prospect of a renewed, trade clash between international companies or international countries in America going into this G7 summit there in France. So Macron the president of France. He's going to be hosting this G7 summit. The gathering comes as U.S. allies remain weary of Washington's increasingly aggressive approach to the trade disputes. Trent, now, what is the digital services tax from France? Well, it's often called the GAFAM, GAFAM. So it basically stands for our tech companies Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. What it stands for. Well, it's been in force since 2019. It's a 3% levy to revenue earned in France by large digital companies with more than about $29 million in French revenue or about $870 million in global revenue. So it specifically targets these large companies. The measure has long angered U.S. officials because it disproportionately affects American technology firms. It only affects American technology firms, is what it is. I think there's a couple other countries' tech firms involved in that, but it's mainly our companies over there. Trump's comments appear to contradict claims from Macron's office last week. Well, his office last week said the dispute was actually no longer under debate among G7 countries. Well, a U.S. official has dismissed that account as inaccurate and said that to the New York Post last week as well. Now, why is he going after wine? Alcohol is one of the European Union's top exports to the United States. It's about $10.5 billion in 2024, according to a lot of surveys. France, in particular, well, they have a lot of products such as champagne, a cognac. The rich people sit in front of their libraries with their fireplaces and their smoking sweaters, smoking jackets, and drink some cognac. But it has to be produced in specific regions, and a lot of that is there in France, leaving producers with limited availability to shift supply chains if they want those products. French wine and spirits exports to the U.S., they face a 15% tariff as of right now, a rate French officials have been lobbying to reduce to zero since Trump and European Commission President, that's the lady with the long name, Ursula von der Leyen, I think is her name. They agreed to a US EU trade deal in Scotland last summer. The New York Post, excuse me, did report that the US market accounts for about one fifth of the French wine industry's global sales. Basically, it's worth about $2 billion annually. So now you see why President Trump specifically targeted the French wine industry. Now, there's some back off here from France, just as a note here. France's National Assembly voted in October of last year to double the digital tax to 6% and then narrow the threshold of focus on the largest global companies, meaning only the largest global companies, which again would be the American companies out there. But ministers later vetoed the move, and so that's why it's still at that 3%. Lawmakers had initially considered a far larger increase before scaling it back among industry pressures. So they even wanted higher than 6%. Obviously, President Trump's not happy with it, looking to get them to get rid of that by putting pressure on that wine industry there in France. This week over here in the United States is obviously a big week. Well, the Federal Reserve is expected to hold rates steady during its monetary policy meeting this week, and it comes out on Wednesday. They meet today and tomorrow. Reporting comes out tomorrow. Even though there was the rise in inflation, they do expect it to hold. No increase coming is what it's expected. But don't forget, it's Chairman Kevin Walsh's first meeting and his first time holding the post meeting press conference. What is the tone and the tenor of the press conference? What is the wording of the press conference? Everybody pays attention to this in investment circles, but obviously you kind of know the tone and tenor when a chairman's been in there for a while, like Jerome Powell. Now that we have a new president, people are going to be watching the wording closely. But inflation has already been elevated before the Iran war. Obviously, made those energy prices go higher. And as we've seen with the reporting every month lately, inflation is getting a little bit higher and higher based off of those energy prices. So obviously, we're well above the Fed's 2% target for inflation. We know the consumer price index, we told you last week, rose to 4.2% in May. That was the highest level since April of 23. Well, this inflationary trend has prompted the market to effectively rule out an interest rate cut at this meeting. The Fed panel, excuse me, but some people still think a price hike might come, but it's very high. It's like 98% say no change coming this week. Now, Warsh's debut at this post-announcement press conference that happens, it'll be watched closely for signs of how policymakers view the path ahead for the economy and the monetary policy with the new chairman involved. The outlook for possible interest rate cuts this year appearing dim. Now, will his comments change that outlook as the president or as the chairman, or will it kind of throw more credence to the fire of no monetary policy cuts coming up as well? So a big week here today and tomorrow. We'll be waiting for that news, and then we showed you the stock for Yum Brand earlier in the show. Well, now let's talk about it. Pizza Hut restaurant chain will be sold. $2.7 billion by Yum Brands. Yum Brands said in February that it was considering selling Pizza Hut, and the chain looked to close 250 U.S. restaurants at that time. They've struggled with outdated stores, growing competition against them. Pizza Hut was founded way back in 1958 in Wichita, Kansas. Of course, PepsiCo bought the chain back in 1977, but then they spun it off with that Yum Brands along with Taco Bell, KFC back in 1997. Now, a private equity firm, it's called Long Range Capital. We know if you've watched this show long enough, you know my feelings on private equity. They do nothing but ruin everything out there. But Long Range Capital is buying Pizza Hut here in the United States, excluding the mainland China business, is what they're buying. They're buying it for $1.5 billion. The mainland China Pizza Hut version of them, they'll be purchased by Yum China Holdings, Inc. for approximately $1.2 billion. That's where you get the 2.7 amount. By selling Pizza Hut, Yum Brands can focus more on its brands with stronger sales, which have always is interesting because why don't you focus on the struggling sales side of it? They just gave up on Pizza Hut. Yum Brands does expect both transactions to close in the third quarter of this year as well. So Pizza Hut officially getting new owners. We'll have to see what changes with them, right? Do they get more expensive? Do the portion sizes shrink? Do the quality shrink? Which I know pizza, that's not great quality anyway. But interesting to keep our eyes on because private equity, not good for companies. And for the most part, there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, that is the case. Now, we're going to look at this company stock here coming up after our break, and we look at the market watch again. But we'll talk about Robinhood right now as well. Well, their shares are up today. At least they were earlier before we looked at it. After the platform announced they would cut 10% of its full time workforce. That's about 290 roles. It's all part of the efforts to streamline operations and flatten management layers within the company. The company said the reduction in force aims to maintain a high performance culture, accelerate product velocity, and also remain lean and disciplined as a company. A lot of companies are going this route, getting rid of management levels. We don't need seven bosses, right, folks? A lot of you can agree with me on that. According to the SEC filing, Robinhood is implementing these cuts from a position of business strength, with June month to date average daily record levels across equities, options, and prediction markets. For an internal memo that did come out, the CEO of Robinhood emphasized that despite the company's unprecedented success, they must avoid becoming a heavily layered organization. He did stress for the need for a lean, hyper focused team for the company. That's even as Robinhood's business has never been stronger. The company estimates it'll incur about $20 million in cash restructuring charges related to employee severance and benefits costs. Then also $8 million in share-based compensation expenses. Robinhood expects to recognize, the accrual of these charges in the second quarter of 2026 coming up. So Robinhood wanting to stay lean and mean, making those changes here in the near future, actually right now. And I didn't realize this company was in that big of a trouble, but it is. Sleep Number, the bedding company. They're first of all, their beds are way too expensive. These are the ones where you put the number in, and then two sides of the bed. Just never interests me. I don't want to work that hard to sleep. But Sleep Number filed for bankruptcy on June 12th, stating that it plans to sell its assets under a $415 million buyout offer from a company called Sleep Country Canada, Inc. Reuters reported that Sleep Number did enter bankruptcy with $672 million in debt. Now, they are based out of Minnesota right now for this mattress company, Sleep Number, but they, of course, blamed tariffs and inflation for its recent struggles with the business. Yeah, your beds are too expensive before inflation kicked in. In court documents obtained by Reuters, Sleep Number stated that the company still open to higher bids. If anyone wants to give them one, then the Sleep Country's $415 million offer. They said it plans to conduct a July 13 auction if a larger bid is received. Sleep Number's goal is to have a sale approved in bankruptcy court by July 15th, a closing date on the sale by July 31st. They just want to be done with this business as its own independent company. Citing the SEC commission, Reuters noted that Sleep Number reported $319 million in net sales and net losses of $50 million for the first quarter of 2026. Before they did file for bankruptcy, they attempted to free up extra cash flow by refinancing some of its debt, closing several stores, even refining product offerings. None of that got them enough cash to survive, so bankruptcy and being sold off now as well. Interesting note here, right? They blamed tariffs. Sleep Number, they sold its rights to refunds under 2025 tariffs that were unsubstantiated, according to court documents obtained by Reuters. So instead of getting the refund from the government, like a lot of other companies are doing, they sold the rights to those refunds to somebody else. Didn't obviously not getting that money back themselves moving forward. But Sleep Number, there you go, folks. In a little bit of trouble and filing for bankruptcy and moving on here and trying to. Well, they're going to be sold. It's just a matter of somebody wants to beat that $415 million offer out there. When we come back here at McCollum on Business Tuesday edition, we keep it rolling. Of course, we're going to look at Dave & Buster's. They're making some waves today, and we'll look at that Robinhood stock as well. We talked about their layoffs coming up. All that's coming your way, plus some local stories, and how much will it cost to put a barbecue together this summer? A little bit more expensive than we all hoped it would be. We'll talk about that as well at the end of the show. Of course, food. Why not? Come on back, folks. McCollum on Business. And we're back here, McCollum on Business. Of course, you just saw some of the other shows we have available to you, both live here, right? This show live at 7 a.m. on YouTube, and of course on YouTube, and then the main event also live on YouTube from 8 to 10 a.m. Me and 17-year NFL veteran Dale Hellerstray get you updated on the sports world here coming up from 8 to 10 live on YouTube. Everything is on demand on YouTube at TME Media AZ. Of course, we're live on TME Media AZ as well. From the pit stop, which comes to you on Wednesdays there on demand. But also everything is is on demand on Rumble as well. Rumble.com/user/TME Media is where you can find us on Rumble. Just go to the videos will pop up there on your screen. It's like a jumbled mess there from what Rumble does. Just click on that channel button right above it. You can get to the channels, click on what show you want to watch, and boom, there they are in order for you. Every Friday at noon, The Real Matrix comes out, not just on Rumble, but on the free podcasting systems. Just search The Real Matrix on Rumble, pops up for you as well, and can listen to that program. For those of you that prefer that, and the numbers on the free podcasts are also high, as well as over on Rumble. So Angry Patriot, thanks you very much for catching that show and supporting that. Of course, the Pit Stop, as I just said, it's got its social media, the Pit Stop Talk, or just search the Pit Stop with Steven. Free podcasting system on X. Give them a follow. Of course, that comes out on Wednesdays. This week, we have the San Diego Street Race there on the naval base of Coronado Island over in San Diego. It's going to be a fun racing weekend. You want to tune into that show this week and get set up for what that course is going to look like, and who knows what to expect. First time ever doing this. So this week's Pit Stop will be a lot of fun out there. And then, of course, this show, the main event, from 8 to 10, live on YouTube, TME Media AZ, and then on demand after that. If you can't watch us because your boss is a slave driver, well, can't help you with that, but it can help you by having the shows on demand for you out there. Of course, every show but this one, free podcast system as well. Catch that. And then follow TME Media AZ on X as well for us. That's our parent company that does all this production. TME Media AZ on X. It tells you what the shows are doing and updated with. We appreciate everything you do to support us. Share us with your friends out there. We'd appreciate it very much. And with that being said, we've had a couple good days around the market. Let's get into the Market Watch. And everything is, well, not everything. The S&P 500 basically even. It looks like it has gone negative on us. On my screen, I show that it is positive, but obviously there's some lag here, and depending where you get it from. Dow is up for its fourth day in a row, though, here. 314 points up for the Dow Jones here. Today, the S&P 500 is down 8 points right now. This is the accurate number on your screen. My screen is about 15 minutes behind or so as well. The NASDAQ, it's down 68 points here as the market has kind of changed for the some of these stocks. NASDAQ's down 68 points. The Russell 2K, it's up 4 points this morning for the small cap indexes. Bitcoin back down here today under that 66,000 level. It's been out the last 2 days. 65,624 for Bitcoin. Found a nice little pocket here since last Thursday, Friday in the low 60,000 range. I'll tell you this as well. We looked at SpaceX earlier. SpaceX, I tell you what, let's do the have it be our stock again. Can you guys throw up the SpaceX stock again? The reason why I'm bringing this back up, we looked at it earlier in the show, 13.82% up right now. They have now passed Microsoft in terms of market cap. They are the fourth biggest company in market capitalization here as of this morning. Yeah, fourth biggest U.S. company as of right now with this run that they've been on here today. So investors continue to invest in large sums into SpaceX as well. The market cap, as I said, I'm trying to find what Microsoft's valuation is right now because we're doing the show. It's hard to calculate it. But SpaceX market cap is at $2.94 trillion here. Microsoft's valuation is $2.93 trillion with its trading today as well. So SpaceX, fourth largest company. The SpaceX did jump Amazon yesterday. Amazon has a market cap of $2.66 trillion as well. Now, to get to Apple, which is the third largest U.S. company, they've got a way to go. 4.3 trillion is what Apple is worth as the third largest. So they got a way to go here to get to that third level. But right now, SpaceX, second full day of trading, passing Microsoft in terms of market capitalization as well. 20% first full day of trading on Friday, up yesterday. It was double digits yesterday. I don't know exactly where it was. Then today, 11.30% up for SpaceX right now as well. So we'll take a look at SpaceX here as one of our stocks in this second. The next one is we're going to look at Dave & Buster's. You know them, video game restaurant, down 3.69%. I'll tell you this, I get texts from them all the time to come and join them. They're putting together some really good deals right now for the summer months, like half off. I think it's half off Wednesdays for games, etc. Well, they're doing all that obviously because their numbers are down a little bit here. Yeah, weaker than expected first quarter results from Dave & Buster's. They earned 16 cents per share, while the analysts expected 60 cents per share. That is a large miss for Dave & Buster's. Revenue was $559.2 million, while the expectation was $580.6 million. Big misses by Dave & Buster's. Comparable store sales, which is a big issue here, they dropped 5.4% from the earlier period. So even their comparable stores sales way down. Dave & Buster's. Maybe that's why I'm getting so many deals coming from Dave & Buster's to try to get us into their video games and restaurant sides. Next up, we're going to look at Robinhood. We told you they're laying off people, lay off about 10% of its workforce, about 290 people. As well, they're going to take that $20 million in charges for severance and benefits costs. We told you about that there in that first segment with the story. Well, they're up 1.17% right now. Robinhood is based off of that news. And obviously, they're doing it from a strength position. They're not in trouble. Their revenue's not down to where they need to cut jobs. They're doing it, at least they are saying they're doing it to keep it a lean company. That's the problem with big companies. A lot of times they just add management layer on top of management layer on top of management layer. Obviously, it just adds to the expenses and things, and you have to go through 7 bosses to get something approved. Well, Robinhood says no mas. 1.04% up based off of that layoff news. Now, let's get into some local stories you need to know as well. And we told you last week there was an agreement for that $18.3 billion state budget here between the Democratic governor and the Republican-dominated Congress, state Senate here in Arizona. Well, massive tax cuts were part of that big deal, and Governor Katie Hobbs did sign it into law on Saturday. forgot about this because she did it over the weekend. So I wanted to just make you aware if you missed it here on Tuesday that she did, in fact, sign it. The state budget includes $1.4 billion in tax cuts over the next few years. And we told you before, this aligns. Arizona is the first state to do tax cuts that matches the federal cuts in the big beautiful bill that passed Congress last year. Arizona is the first ones to follow that. Starting on July 1st, Arizonans will have no tax on tips and overtime, a higher standard deduction and senior tax credit. And then next year, you'll get expanded child tax credits as well into that deal. Of course, Governor Hobbs is taking credit for that, even though it is from the federal tax cut guidelines. Now, everybody needs to rush to get credit, right? Hobbs touted the fact that every year she's been in office, the state has actually cut taxes. Republican state lawmakers, who obviously pushed for the full tax conformity for several months, stuck to their guns to get it through. They also taxed the tax cuts as a win. The signed state budget, it includes slight cuts to most state agencies. There are a few exemptions, but generally every agency getting a slight cut here. Just meaning, and by cut, it just means they're not getting an increase amount that is expected. They're not actually cutting dollars. They're just saying you're not getting your whatever it is, 5% increase in your budget. You're staying the same. Stuff like that is happening out there. We talked about SpaceX, right? We looked at their stocks, but there's a little company up in Flagstaff called Catalyst Space. Well, they're kind of involved in a big deal here. They plan to fly the first ever robotic space rescue mission this summer. Yeah. They're working with NASA to dock with the Swift Space Telescope. What they're going to do is they're going to try to boost it back into a higher orbit. It's coming down and it's going to burn out into the Earth's atmosphere if they don't get it raised. Now, according to the company, this was never supposed to be worked on, this satellite that's up there, the Swift one. It doesn't have any interfaces or grapple features or even USB ports that you could plug into. It was never envisioned that it would be serviced, this satellite. Just going to put it up there and let it be. So the company has to, the CEO said, so we have to bring all that equipment ourselves, unquote, to get this moved back into rigor and higher orbit. But there you go. Company up in Flagstaff getting in on this a big project here, Catalyst Space, getting this project and see how successful it does become here for them. They're able to move that satellite. Just a heads up here, right? Everybody's doing stuff for the 250th anniversary of America here in a month here on July 4th. I just wanted to make you know, K Jazz brings us this, and anytime I see these, I get kind of nostalgic for this, right? The bus rides and hopping on a bus and having somebody drive you someplace and seeing something as beautiful as the Grand Canyon. Well, a new bus service is offering rides from Phoenix Sky Harbor to the south rim of the Grand Canyon. The company called Flixbus. It's offering the summer service as part of the America 250th anniversary. The service does begin at the SkyTrain station at 44th Street near Sky Harbor. They say fares vary on demand, but generally you'll pay about $30 per ticket, one way up there and one way back. That's affordable, folks, to go see the Grand Canyon. They say passengers should be aware that they still will need a National Parks Pass to actually enter the park once you get up there. Now they added Phoenix here to the Grand Canyon, but it's not the first city that Flixbus service to the Grand Canyon. They already do service to the South Rim from Las Vegas right now as well. Now, the Phoenix service, you will have two stops. You will stop in Glendale from Sky Harbor and then Flagstaff before you move on to the Grand Canyon as well there. So just a heads up if you want to do a little bus ride this summer and you want to hop in your car and drive up there, escape the heat. Well, there you go. Another service for you. And I used to do it all the time from Phoenix to Payson when I was a kid to go up to see the grandparents up at their cabin. I used to just hop on a little bus, pick me up in Payson, and we'd go on from there. So I'm a little nostalgic to these bus trips, to these destinations. Well, how much is putting a barbecue together this summer going to cost you? A little bit more, folks. It's a newly released Wells Fargo Summer Barbecued Food Report. It reveals that hosting a standard summer barbecue for 10 people It's climbed an average of $161. That comes out to about $16 per person. Total cookout costs are up 2.4% year over year. The problem is the real price, yeah, it's right in the meat. Yeah, the meat is your problem. The hamburger beef, it's skyrocketed by 14% for this summer. Yeah. The report says for fresh fruits and vegetables, anticipate some relief as summer unfolds, meaning they're getting a little bit cheaper. Growers are motivated by higher prices to plant more acreage for the fruits, so increased supply will help moderate price hikes and actually may offer consumers a little bit of a break on the fruit side. But the meat side, our cattle's down. The screwworm virus is in here now. We don't have enough cattle. Demand's through the roof for meat. So those will be elevated. But for those who value convenience and opt for prepared foods, your prices will be even higher if you don't want to do things raw. I'll have some specific numbers coming up here in just a minute. But these convenience items are driven more by labor, packaging, and energy costs than the underlying commodities themselves. As consumers continue to pay for convenience, retailers are able to maintain their margins, by raising the prices as somebody's got to put the, frame, put the burgers in a round thing for you and stuff to that effect. Burgers are taking the biggest hit on inflation. So are other grilling favorites though as well, like chicken, pork products. They're up 3% from the previous year. They are seen as a cost-friendly option though, being 3%, only having a 3% increase and price lower than those hamburgers. But hot dogs and frankfurters, they're up 5% also. Obviously, cattle driven for them as well. Ready made sides like potato salads, they're up 3%. Well, wages are up. So those wages are being passed along to consumers. Other favorites like cornbread, they're up 4%. Raw vegetables are up 6%. And if you're saving room for dessert, well, going to pay a little bit more. Not just in it going straight to your hips, folks. Prices have increased anywhere from 1 to 4% on those desserts out there. So not just it's hitting your wallet, it's making your wallets lighter, making you bigger though. Pre-made grocery store shortcuts can be budget busters during the summer. So buying a pre-cut vegetable tray adds about $7 premium to your bill. While buying fully cooked, prepackaged ribs, those cost $4 more per pound than buying them raw and cooking them yourselves. So if you go for convenience, you're going to spend considerably more. To get things raw and not formed for you, like hamburger patties, just get the ground beef and make them yourself. You will save a little bit of money, but there is high prices here coming up. And like the veggie and fruit trays, cut them yourself, folks. Save considerable amount of money. Obviously not as convenient out there, but hey, barbecue's getting a little bit more expensive. Well, they are not getting. It is a little bit more expensive this year than it normally is out there as well. So, hey, I appreciate you joining me here for this Tuesday edition of McCollum on Business. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, on Wednesday, 7 a.m. as we're trending for Juneteenth here coming up on Friday. No show this Friday as well, with the markets being closed with that Juneteenth holiday coming up this Friday. But we'll be here tomorrow and Thursday as well, 7 a.m. Make sure you come and join us. Of course, main event coming up live on YouTube next. And then, of course, everything up on demand after that, folks. We'll see you either here on demand. Come and join us. Share us with your friends. Have a great Tuesday night.